This election isn't a reality TV show.
If she treats me with respect, I will treat her with respect. It really depends.
The first presidential debate just days away. Dr. Jeff Engels, the director of the Center for Presidential History at SMU. Monday night's debate, first of three. This really could be what, the most watched debate like in the history?
That's what we're seeing. We're seeing more interest in this, and we're seeing more people are going to tune in. They're saying over 100 million people.
Really? Wow. Now, I'm seeing two hot topics. I think the very first one could be that they're going to have to deal with is race relations in the country, seeing the recent officer-involved shootings that we've seen. A tough topic, highly controversial. These presidential candidates can't make everyone happy.
No, and it's really hard to imagine two candidates that are further apart on these issues. If we look at Donald Trump, for example, he has record low support among African Americans in particular, almost hovering around 0%, which is hard to fathom, and certainly among Latinos as well. And so as a consequence, Hillary Clinton is seeing that as a great place for her to make electoral strides. And what's been interesting is that Trump has really been speaking to the African American community for the last several weeks, but not necessarily speaking to them. It appears that very much he's trying to target the suburban white voters who essentially want a president to talk about race, want a president to be concerned about race, and really just wants a president to be empathetic about race, not necessarily to solve the same problems that the African American community sees. So basically Trump is talking about that issue, but not necessarily speaking to those voters.
What about national security? We've seen the bombing in New York, the stabbings in Minnesota, dealing with these possible terrorists. What about security? Have the majority of people already decided who they're voting for?
You know, it seems as though the majority of people at this point have already decided, and we have to remember that early voting is actually going to start in just a couple of weeks. So it's not just that people have decided, it's that they're actually going to be making their choice at this point. And we're seeing a very interesting distinction within the electorate that both sides seem to claim transparency and trust as the issue that they care about most, but with one key difference. If you decide that you're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, you think Trump needs to be more transparent. And if you're going to vote for Trump, you think Clinton needs to be more transparent.
Right, which is how it always works.
Yeah, this tells us that people have really essentially decided, which tells us also that the debates are going to be really important, but also that something like national security could come up in October to really put a real spin and change on the election, because there is one issue that people really see a difference between the two candidates. That Trump is trying to be very hardcore on national security, very tough on immigration, very tough on terrorism, and Hillary Clinton less so. At least she's trying to have a more nuanced approach. And there's a moment where something literally blows up. People may not want nuance, they may want toughness.
Well, when you talk about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton as well, when you look at some of the events that they've had lately, I mean, you look at some of the Donald Trump I mean, Hillary Clinton, I think the other day had like about 300 at one event. Donald Trump's had thousands. Do these numbers really, I mean, like an overflow crowd, do these numbers really translate to voters? Are these people actually going to vote?
You know, that's a really key question. And one place I think that the Trump campaign is trying to do something completely different is that they really have not put a lot of money or effort into getting out the vote in the way that Republicans have traditionally. They're still way behind on opening offices in key states like Florida and Ohio. And so if the election comes down to a very narrow number of voters, one could say that this is going to tip towards the Clinton people because they've put the time and the effort in. Now, the Trump campaign will tell you this is the 21st century. What really matters is the national media. What really matters are the Twitter feeds. Those are the ways that you get to voters, not the traditional door-to-door knocking and getting people out.
They're running out of time.
They are.
They are running out of time.
47 days to go.
All right. Thank you so much for the insight. Again, the very first presidential debate is Monday night. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you.